The Time Ponies and the Cutie Mark Thief vs. the Queen of Hearts. Written and read by My Name is R. Chapter 9. Diving Deeper. There was a light dusting of snow lying on the ground early one Thursday morn, a testament to the accuracy of Ponyville's weather team. Winter was just peeking its head over the remainder of autumn, and it would only get colder as time wore on. The running of the leaves had been the focus of most of the town, and with its passing, it was time to head into the next season. Perfect Timing didn't care about all that this year. She'd been preoccupied with thoughts of how to safely return Inky to her. She watched as Starlight talked to Time Turner and Extra Time about diplomacy with the Everfree refugees. She and Derpy had been invited into the discussion, due to them both holding government jobs, but they had both declined. Perfect had stepped up in Town Hall to keep Inky from having too many problems when she got back, but she wasn't going to accept the leadership portion of acting sheriff from ponies who knew what had happened. And Derpy knew that all that stuff would just go right over her head. "Alright, we're ready to go," said Starlight, strapping on her saddlebags. "This time we should be safe upon arrival, so we'll go in any order that's convenient." Time Turner and Perfect Pace stood at the control pillar, and then the portal fired up. First white and a soft green that looked sort of like Inky's eyes made a series of quickly shifting circles. Then a dramatic flash of white made Perfect Timing glance away. When she looked back, the mirror was covered in a swirling pattern of the two colors that reminded her of Inky's transformation if it had matched her unicorn irises instead of her changeling eyes. Starlight was the first through the mirror, and Perfect followed next, after waiting a few seconds to let Starlight move out of the unloading zone. As with the previous trip, there was a very disorienting moment that felt like spinning through a rainbow, followed by the abrupt release into the new world. This time, though, she wasn't flying level with the ground, but up into the air. It was only at that moment that she remembered something Time Turner had said last time about making sure they would be upright. Apparently, he only meant when they were heading straight into trouble. "Ah! Pfft, ooh. For Celestia's sake, I only thought it was bad the first time." Perfect brushed herself off and stood up. Looking around, she saw that she had been fired out of a lake into a cave with a few dozen ponies in it. There seemed to be far more light than there should have been, given that she couldn't see the sky. It was also uncomfortably warm. "You might not want to keep standing there," called a familiar voice, bringing Perfect back to the moment at hoof. She trotted away from the pool toward her friend. No, she reminded herself, towards this other Pinkie Pie. "Hello there. Do you know who I am?" "Of course not, silly. We've never met before." "You do look sorta like our old deputy Perfect Timing. You don't look nearly as panicked as she would be, though." "Aha! I always expected there was something about those 6 mares that attracted trouble, ever since that time when..." Perfect trailed off, not sure how much to share with this mare. She noticed that there was some sort of gathering going on the other side of the cave, though about a third of the many ponies in the cave were wandering about, as if searching for something. Pinkie gasped. "Did your Ponyville also get attacked by changelings?" No. In our world, the changelings never attacked Ponyville, but a lot of other things did. Tell me, did anything cause significant harm to Ponyville between Nightmare Moon's return and the changeling assault?" "Nightmare Moon? Who's that?" "Did the sun refuse to come up for a long time in your world? Maybe about 2 years ago?" asked Perfect. She noticed that Fluttershy had approached them, though she remained silent. Pinkie tilted her head. "Why would any pony keep the sun from coming up? Without the sun, we would all be frozen in eternal ice." Pinkie gasped. "Is Nightmare Moon working for the Wendigos?" "What? Wendigos? Why Wendigos?" Fluttershy stepped forward. "Because the Wendigos seek to freeze Equestria, and we know only 2 ways to stop them. One is love and friendship, and the other is heat. That's why the sun never sets anymore." "What? The sun never sets?" The Vindigos are back? When did that happen? About a week after the changelings attacked, answered Fluttershy. Changelings feed on love, so ponies stopped being as loving. And then the Wendigos came back. After almost a month, the sun simply stopped at its peak, and it has remained there since. When did all this happen? Asked Perfect. Well, it's hard to judge time without the sun, said Pinkie, but it happened after the 1107th Summer Sun celebration. Perfect blinked. Ivory Scroll's 7th re-election was that summer? Perfect blinked again. 2 years after Sheriff Silverstar left Ponyville? That I know. It was about a year ago, at least for us. Is that when our pasts diverge? Asked Fluttershy. Well, that was about a year after the long night, which we know is different. Come to think of it, I don't know when that change happened. Let's compare histories. Pinkie, when you were still a filly, you moved to Ponyville from a rock farm, right? No, I only moved to Ponyville after I finished growing up. Was your version of Ponyville also started by Earth Ponies, starting the tradition of winter wrap-up, where we bring spring to the town without magic? Asked Fluttershy. Yes, and specifically by the apples. Oh, I just remembered. The purple alicorn said that some pony named Starlight went back in time to stop the alicorn's friends from coming together, said Pinkie. Does that help? Was the purple alicorn named Twilight? She never said her name. But her dragon did, added Fluttershy. How did you know that was her name? Because I only know 4 alicorns, and no 2 are the same color. Perfect raised an eyebrow. How many purple alicorns do you know? We know only 2 alicorns, and both of them were captured in the opening strike against Canterlot. Why isn't Twilight with you? Hi, every pony! Minuet jumped over to them from somewhere. Perfect hadn't been paying attention. I'm Minuet, and I'm so glad to meet you. Tell me, Pinkie, did we ever meet in this world? I don't think so, but we have now. I think I'm going to like you. Nice to keep the trend going. Is she always like this? Asked Fluttershy, while Minuet bounced off, Pinkie following behind and chattering pleasantly. Just about. Usually, Pinkie would be matching or exceeding her enthusiasm, but your Pinkie seems to be a bit calmer than ours. Still fun to hang around with, I bet. And so, the conversation drifted on, but the seeds of knowledge had been planted, and would not easily die out. Meanwhile, beneath the attention of any of the chatting mares, Driver sat contemplating what he had heard. Emerald scanned the ponies in the cave. She noticed that while Daring Do was here, as were the other 2 ponies who had been with her, Zodal was nowhere to be seen. Daring Do and the older pony were busy talking with Starlight, Extra Time, Zecora, and a few other ponies who were probably from the Everfree camp. But the younger pony who had been with them was standing all by himself by the entrance. She decided to go talk to him. But just as she turned to go, she saw Derpy looking up at the ceiling a few paces away. Hey, Derpy. I was going to talk to one of Daring's companions, and I thought I would invite you to join me. Derpy nodded, and the 2 of them set off toward the lone stallion. When Emerald and Derpy came close enough to speak to him, casually, Emerald cleared her throat. Hi there, I'm Emerald, and this is Derpy. Would you happen to be Biff, by any chance? Yeah, so I guess Daring's books are a thing in your world too? Let me guess. Why am I helping Daring Do when I should be fighting her at every turn because I'm one of the bad guys? Emerald huffed indignantly. Not every Daring Do fan blindly idolizes everything about her, although I can think of a few ponies who are probably exactly what you're thinking of. Maybe more than a few. But a decent portion of the fandom are fairly reasonable ponies who, while appreciative of the narrative, don't make out their favorite characters as unimpeachable paragons of virtue while vilifying any pony who opposes them. Isn't that right, Derpy? Derpy's eyes slowly drifted apart, causing Biff to look away uncomfortably. I don't know all those words, she she grinned apologetically. Emerald sighed. Do you think Dr. Caballeron and his minions are completely evil with no redeeming traits? Of course not. They trust each other and have great teamwork. Plus, they never leave one of their own behind. And really, leaving Rienda del Rey tells a lot about a pony. I'm pretty sure Dr. C's never been to Rienda, Biff interjected. He just likes to pretend he has, but his parents left before he was born. How long have you known him? Asked Emerald. He was in my high school. He was my history teacher. So, I didn't exactly grow up with him, but I've known him longer than any pony else I know of. I'm the only member of his crew who's still with him. All the others left when he teamed up with Daring and Zodal to help bring the day and night back into balance. What? Emerald asked, with Derpy tilting her head and making a quizzical noise. Yeah, he is fighting the changelings, but he's specifically trying to stop the Wendigos so the sun and moon can go back to moving. I think Daring is the only one more upset about the changelings. Speaking of, I saw Daring and now he's Zodal earlier, but where is Dr. Caballeron? At Emerald's question, Biff stiffened, glancing away. I can't say. I thought you were still working with him. Derpy gasped. Is he lost? I can't say, Biff growled. Now I'd better be off. Goodbye. And with that, he turned tail and ran out of the cave. Derpy lowered her head. I thought everything was fine. I just don't know what went wrong. I think Biff may have known more than he was letting on, Emerald whispered, looking at the gathering of what passed for the leaders in one area of the cave. She studied Daring's third companion. He was a brown earth pony with a grey striped tail and green eyes. The longer she looked at him, the more familiar he looked, though his cutie mark was covered up. Hey Derpy, do you recognize that stallion? She asked, pointing. The one who looks just like Filthy Rich's father? Maybe. I'm not familiar with that name. Huh? Derpy tilted her head. Oh, of course. You don't live in Ponyville. Dark brown with a grey mane? Yes. Is that stallion whoever you said he looks like? Well, he looks a little different, but I haven't seen him in several years. Huh. I think he looks like Dr. Caballeron. Derpy stared at the pony with both eyes. You're right! Does this mean Mr. Rich is secretly related to Dr. Caballeron? I think it's a coincidence, but who knows? I'm not sure if that is Dr. Caballeron, but he did come with Biff, and Biff is acting odd about Caballeron's whereabouts, so it's something to keep in mind. Are you a detective? Emerald shook her head. No, I run a bookstore, but I do read detective novels. That's helpful. Most ponies respond to that by saying that stories don't mirror reality, and not to assume everything works like a novel. Oh, that's not helpful? As long as you don't let literary conventions fog your judgment too hard, it can still be good practice. Whatever you say. Isn't it grand how well ponies can get along if only they put their minds to it? Said Extra Time as the meeting between the various representatives was drawing to a close. If only it could be like this all the time. This went by much faster and smoother than most talks between leaders I've been privy to. A common foe does help keep things civil, and none of us have much time to spare, said the older stallion, though I very much look forward to meeting you in less rushed circumstances. For now, explanations must wait. For the first time in months, we have an actual goal beyond fight the changelings. That's all I need. You do your thing, we'll make sure to keep them busy. Daring smirked as she and her companion turned and headed for the cave exit. Zecora turned and called to the cave. Please come here, Pinky and Fluttershy. There is one who needs you more than I. After a few moments, both mares stood at attention in front of Zecora and the others. Starlight nodded. I have a plan that should help stop the changelings. By a castle hidden in this forest, there is a collection of ancient artifacts that should help. Unfortunately, I've never seen them in use myself, and I'm not quite sure what they do. but I've heard first hoof accounts that they can defeat gods and demons, so they should be sufficient to deal with the changelings. The hard part is that only those chosen by the elements can use them. Since in my world you were 2 of the element bearers, we thought you might still be able to use them here. We'll do our best, Pinky said with a salute, while Fluttershy nodded. If that is all, we should away. I hope we meet again one day. Zecora began rounding up her refugees and heading up into the surrounding jungles. Extra Time walked carefully into the central pool, causing Fluttershy to tilt her head. Why is he leaving? He's not terribly handy on an adventure, and he didn't want to join. He offered to come for the discussion, but now that that's done, his task is complete. I see. Author's note. For any wondering, the cave this meeting takes place in is the one with the mirror pool in it. I know there was a little repetition of exposition, but I couldn't see a good way of showing all the pieces I wanted to show you at this point without a little overlap. Hopefully the pacing isn't too off. Chapter 9, and we finally begin on the quest for harmony. I do have this arc mostly nailed down, so comments are unlikely to give me the sorts of ideas I can borrow for the plot, but I would love to hear your guesses on how the plan pans out. I probably will neither confirm nor deny, because spoilers, but I appreciate knowing what my audience is thinking. I was kind of hoping someone would openly suspect Inky of being a changeling in advance, but now I guess I'll never be sure if anyone saw that coming. So in this chapter, we've got the party starting to be assembled. There was something I wanted to say. What was it? Oh yeah, I remember. It was, I have noticed before in writing a previous story, the, Dr. Cabaleron and the Magic Flower, that Dr. Cabaleron looks oddly reminiscent of Filthy Rich. Like, they have a very similar... They look very similar. I think it's a coincidence. I don't think they're related. It's just interesting. Anyway, thank you all for listening, and I hope you have a good day. Bye.